Hello to all of my awesome undead listeners out there. I just wanted to take a quick moment before this video to let you all know that I am back with new videos, new topics. I'm looking forward to it. There's great things planned, starting with these subscriber submissions for all of you to enjoy. I hope you're ready to embrace the terror and keep on embracing it as we move into the rest of the year. You guys enjoy, and I'll see you again soon. I was on holiday staying at my sister's old house. We were having a coffee, talking, and catching up because we hadn't seen each other in a while. She told me that her and her partner, now ex-partner, had recently both seen a black figure staring at them through the hallway door where they had been watching TV. I had noticed myself that the house was strange. I used to get a comfortable feeling at the house, but during that particular visit, the vibe was different. I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt off. And their flatmate's room was always freezing, regardless of how hot that it was. I had a nightmare one night where I woke up to hear something whispering in my ear. I began to feel possessed and had no control over my body. I started walking from the spare room into the hallways toward the lounge, and my body started to rot the closer that I got to the lounge. Suddenly, I woke up in a sweat, confused and trying to figure out what had just happened. I knew I had been dreaming and that none of it had been real, but it was so incredibly vivid and realistic. It could have been nothing more than an oddity. I simply couldn't help but wonder, though, if the whispering, which sounded like someone's name, could be linked somehow. My cousin, who stayed the night on the couch in the lounge, also had a strange dream. In it, she was sleeping on the couch and started levitating into the air above the couch before she suddenly dropped. She explained it kinda like those dreams when you're falling and then wake up abruptly before you hit the ground. Sometimes when you would walk to the toilet or the kitchen early in the morning, you would hear footsteps or even feel a tap on your back. I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me at first, until I decided to start doing tests. I'd wake up, walk into the kitchen, and as soon as I would hear the extra footsteps, I'd come to a halt just to hear them continuing behind me. These occurrences only ever happened to us individually, and only in the early hours of the day. We told my aunt about everything that was going on about the house, so she was interested and wanted to come see for herself. She started walking around, listening and looking out for anything strange. She went into the flatmate's room, the one that was always very cold. It was calm, and nothing was out of the ordinary until she went to cross the threshold. At that moment, a set of drawers next to the wall by the door slid in front of the doorway as if preventing her from entering. I don't know how heavy they were, but judging by the size, it would have probably taken a decent amount of effort to shove the thing across the floor like that. She stepped back from the doorway, and when she did, things started being thrown across the room into the walls. I saw books and a lamp go flying across the room before the door slammed shut. We could still hear things breaking and being hurled, but when my aunt opened the door again, everything stopped instantly. I don't necessarily believe in ghosts or the paranormal. Not with complete certainty, anyway. I think most occurrences have a completely rational explanation. I will say, though, that I have seen some very odd things in my life that I have trouble wrapping my head around. This being one of them. This paranormal experience had such an impact on me that I still remember it as clearly as if it had just happened. I've had many experiences in this house, but this was one of my first. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. After my parents got married, my mother immediately got pregnant. Sometime after, she gave birth to me. That was when my parents bought the house next to my grandma's. This was in 1990, and the house was a little different than it is today. It was a one-bedroom house divided by a wall to make a smaller room, which was my room. The way you would enter would be through my parents' bedroom, as mine didn't have a door. The economy in Puerto Rico was not good. There aren't many jobs, and the ones available don't pay well, even if you have a degree. My dad went to the U.S. when I was 4 years old and stayed at his sister's house in Maryland temporarily to work. He saved until he was able to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, and during that time, we waited. Before I tell you my first scary experience, I have to add that I have always had a connection to the spiritual world. For example, when I was 2 or 3 years old, my grandma passed away from cancer. After she passed, my mom caught me in her garden watering the plants, the hose obviously difficult for me to hold on to. She asked why I was watering them, and I replied, "Grandma told me to." Now back to my scary experience. I slept with a nightlight, so you could actually see my whole room after sundown. It made my mom's room look even darker, and it also didn't help that my bed faced the door frame, which made my experience all the more terrifying. One night, I couldn't sleep and felt as if I were being watched from my mom's room. Then I hear footsteps, and I think it's her walking toward my room, but it was actually my dad, smiling. I sat up in bed, knowing that it couldn't possibly be him because he was still in the U.S. Next thing I know, I couldn't move. It felt like I was frozen in time, and the only thing capable of action was the entity. It put one hand on its hip, and the other on the upper side of the door frame. I started to feel extremely scared, and the more afraid I became, the more the entity's smile grew. It was feeding on my fear, becoming more terrifying with its smile bigger and bigger until it reached its ears on either side of its face. At that point, I pulled up just enough strength inside to scream for my mom as loud as I could. The second the words left my mouth, the entity evaporated like a vapor before she could get to me. This story sounds insane, I'm aware, but it's true. And it's also just the icing of all of my scary experiences in that house. I live in a small town where there is a known witch grave. When I was in high school, I visited the location with my ex, who is Wiccan. She warned me not to touch it, but of course I did it anyway. When we returned to her car, there were handprints all over the windows and windshield. Whoever or whatever did this had just done so, and it was obvious because it was very cold and the prints themselves were the only spots on the windows without frost. Since then, the prints have appeared on the windows of my car more than once. I'm planning on going back at night to see if it will happen again.